He came in for a coffee. Quiet, polite, invisible, like he was trained to be. But she saw his skin before she saw his silence. And in that moment, a cup of coffee became a weapon. What she didn't know? The man she just humiliated in front of a dozen witnesses carries a federal badge and a list of names that includes half this town's police force. This isn't just a cafe. It's a pressure cooker. And by the time the last drop hits the floor, someone's life will be changed forever. The smell of roasted beans lingered in the air like a promise. Smooth jazz played overhead, soft and unassuming, blending with the gentle hum of morning chatter. The cafe was upscale, minimalist, white oak counters, muted lighting, brushed steel. Everything about it whispered civility. Elijah Brooks stood in line near the pastry display, calm, composed, a man used to reading rooms without revealing his own page. Black suit, no tie, ID badge tucked out of sight. He scrolled slowly through his phone, not because he needed to, but because the habit made people more comfortable, less threatened. His presence had already drawn glances. Not hostile, not overt, just calibrated curiosity. The kind that weighed the color of your skin before the cut of your coat. Behind him, a sharp heel tapped impatiently. Then a sigh, then another. Oh my God. The woman muttered just loud enough to invite confrontation. Some people act like they've never ordered a latte before. Elijah turned, slowly. Her coat was pristine, cream wool, expensive. Her lips were pursed, her eyes hard. But it was the tone that struck him. He'd heard it before. On sidewalks. In boardrooms. At traffic stops. He met her gaze and said, voice low and clear, "If you're in a rush, you're welcome to go ahead." She didn't answer. Instead, she took a long sip from her cup. Then, with a flick of her wrist, tossed the remainder of her hot coffee across his back. Gasps erupted. The jazz didn't stop, but something colder replaced it. And Elijah, still, silent, didn't flinch. Not even as the manager came rushing out and said, "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Elijah didn't move. Hot liquid soaked through his shirt, running down the curve of his spine, but he didn't react. Not yet. He'd learned a long time ago, never meet fire with fire. Let it burn itself out. The cafe fell into a stunned hush, punctuated only by the hiss of the espresso machine and a single spoon clinking against porcelain. The manager stood in front of him now, pale, sweating, eyes darting around like he was searching for a safe choice, not a right one. "Sir," he repeated, voice sharper now, "we don't want any trouble." "I didn't bring any," Elijah said evenly, finally turning to face the man. The woman, the one with the cream coat and shaking hand, had already stepped back like she was afraid he might strike her. Her cup was on the floor now, rolling in slow circles like a guilty conscience. "You're making people uncomfortable," the manager added, gesturing awkwardly. "Let's just de-escalate." Elijah's jaw tensed. He could feel the eyes. The patrons. The baristas. Watching. Weighing. No one stepping forward. Not yet. That old ache stirred inside him again. Not rage, not even hurt. Just exhaustion. The bone-deep kind that only comes from being told, again and again, that your presence is the real offense. Then a sharp voice cut through the silence from the corner booth. He didn't do anything. Heads turned. A teenage girl with box braids and a half-zipped hoodie stared at the manager, unflinching. Her phone was still recording. Her mother tried to tug her down, but she wouldn't move. "He just stood there," she said louder. She threw the coffee. And just like that, the atmosphere shifted, barely, but enough. Now all the eyes were looking at the woman in the cream coat. She stepped back, eyes wide, voice trembling. I felt threatened. He was standing too close. I didn't know what he was going to do." Elijah turned slightly, just enough to glance at her. His voice was a whisper, but it landed like a punch. "You didn't feel threatened. You felt entitled." The girl's voice still echoed. "You didn't feel threatened. You felt entitled." The words didn't just hang, they shifted the room. The woman in the cream coat blinked hard, like she was trying to decide if she'd been attacked or embarrassed. Her hand gripped the empty coffee cup like it could somehow turn the moment back, spill something different. Her gaze bounced from Elijah to the girl to the manager, looking for someone to rescue her narrative. The manager didn't know where to stand. He hovered between them, body language collapsing into itself. "Let's not escalate this," he said again, softer now. But Elijah noticed who he was still looking at when he said it. I've asked you once, Elijah said, voice still level, and I'll ask again. What exactly did I do wrong? The manager opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The woman interrupted instead, breath short. You, you were standing too close. You were staring. Elijah exhaled slow. I was in line. You didn't say anything. Because I wasn't talking to you. That silence again. Heavy. Charged. The kind that says everyone knows what just happened, but no one wants to name it. Someone near the espresso machine let out a slow damn under their breath. The girl with the phone was still recording. The woman's face flushed, red rising fast under powdered cheeks. I don't have to be assaulted with. You weren't assaulted, Elijah cut in. But I was. The words landed like bricks. His tone hadn't changed, but the weight behind them had. A few more people turned now. A young barista behind the counter froze mid-pour, her eyes wide. Elijah didn't move, didn't raise his voice. He just stood there, drenched in cooling coffee, in front of a woman still pretending she was the victim. Ma'am, he said, do you know what this could have done if it had hit my face? She faltered. The coffee cup in her hand began to tremble just enough to betray her grip. I didn't mean. You meant enough to throw it. The manager finally stepped forward again, reaching gently for the woman's wrist. Maybe we should step outside. She pulled away. You're seriously taking his side? No one answered. The air was thick with the kind of discomfort people pay to avoid. A man in a Patagonia vest tried to pretend he was still reading his phone, but his screen hadn't moved in minutes. A couple sitting by the window exchanged looks, but didn't speak. You're not even going to ask who he is? The woman demanded. He could be anyone. The girl at the booth smiled slightly. Yeah, he could. That's when Elijah reached slowly into his jacket pocket. The motion was slow, deliberate, careful. Even now, he knew better than to move too fast. Even now, after being humiliated, after being drenched in coffee, he was still thinking about their fear before his own rights. He pulled out a small leather badge holder, flipped it open. FBI. No words. Just the badge. Held quietly, firmly. A collective inhale sucked the room dry. The manager's face went slack. The woman's mouth twitched like she might scream or faint. One of the baristas whispered, "Oh my God." Elijah didn't say a word. He just held it there. Not as a threat. Not as a flex. Just the truth. It was a clean, brutal shift. A mirror held up to the entire room. The same man. The same calm. The same posture. But now, suddenly, respect. The woman stepped back like she'd been struck. I didn't know. That, Elijah said quietly, is exactly the problem. The girl's camera kept rolling. A teenage boy in line whispered to his friend, "Yo, this is gonna go viral." Elijah lowered his badge and slipped it back into his pocket. Every move still slow, still thoughtful. Not for them. For him. For the 1,000 times he'd practiced control in a world where his existence was always someone else's emergency. The woman's eyes glazed over now. She looked around, desperate for someone to hand her a better story. No one did. And then her voice cracked. "You're not going to arrest me?" Elijah studied her. "No," he said finally. "I'm going to let you sit with what you did. That's heavier than cuffs." She blinked. Her body wilted in place. Like the weight of her own reflection was starting to settle. And still, no one moved to comfort her. But someone moved toward Elijah. It was the barista, the young one, the one who'd paused mid-pour. She stepped out from behind the counter, a clean towel in hand. She didn't say anything, just walked up and handed it to him, eyes soft. Apologetic. Angry. All at once. He took it gently. Nodded once. That's all. No forgiveness. Just acknowledgement. Then the mother of the girl who was filming finally stood up. Her voice came carefully, but it came. "Would you like to sit down?" Elijah didn't answer at first. The cafe had returned to stillness. But not the same kind of stillness. This one hummed with awareness. With aftermath. He looked at the seat. Then at the woman still standing there, stunned. Then he said, softly, "No, I'll stand. I've done it my whole life." And then he turned to leave. But not before giving the girl with the phone one last look. "Post it," he said, and walked out. The door hadn't even finished closing behind him when the room began to move again. But slower now. Like everyone had to reckon with what they'd just been a part of. The girl with the phone lowered it carefully, like the act of recording had protected her somehow. Her hands were trembling a little now that it was over. If it was over. Her mom sat back down, but her eyes stayed glued to the door Elijah had just walked through. Nobody touched their coffee. Nobody dared go back to small talk. It was as if real life had interrupted the fantasy everyone thought they were living. The manager rubbed his temples, now visibly sweating. The barista with the towel walked slowly back behind the counter, her jaw clenched, wiping her hands harder than she needed to. The white woman still hadn't moved. She stood there, coffee cup hanging empty from her hand, her breath shallow. The proud tilt in her chin was gone. In its place, something hollow. But not regret. Not yet. Just exposure. You need to leave, the manager finally said to her, quiet but firm. She blinked like she didn't hear him. He repeated it. Ma'am, you need to leave. The woman glanced around again, hoping, expecting, that someone might defend her. But they all looked away, even the ones who'd sided with her at first. Now they were busy stirring coffee that had long gone cold, staring at scones they hadn't touched. No one would meet her eyes. She opened her mouth as if to speak, then closed it again. Slowly, she set the cup down on the nearest table. It wobbled slightly before settling. She started walking toward the exit. But her heels didn't click the same way now. They dragged. Her steps were clumsy, uncertain. Just as her hand touched the glass door, someone called out, "You're lucky he's better than you." It was the girl. Everyone looked up. Her voice wasn't angry, just calm, observant. The way a person speaks when they've been raised to see things that others pretend not to. The woman paused, hand still on the door. And for the first time, she turned around. Her voice cracked. "I didn't know." "That's not a defense," the girl said quietly. "That's the whole damn problem." The woman didn't respond. She slipped out the door like smoke, and just like that, she was gone. A few people exhaled, like they'd been holding their breath for her to disappear. The manager walked behind the counter without a word. He didn't offer free drinks or apologies. Just faded into the background, like a man praying no one remembered how long he stayed silent. The barista turned to the girl and her mom. "Do y'all want anything?" "It's on me." The mom shook her head, but the girl held up her phone. "Can I use your Wi-Fi password?" The barista grinned. "Already posted?" She nodded. "Already climbing." Across the room, two college-aged guys were watching the video on one of their phones. The title already read, "White woman throws coffee at black man in suit. Watch what happens next." More phones lit up. Quiet reactions. Gasps. A laugh somewhere. A curse word muttered under breath. "He really didn't say a word till the end?" someone asked. "He didn't have to," the girl said. "That's what made it hit." But then the boy in the Patagonia vest, who'd been quiet this whole time, finally spoke up. "That's scary, though." Everyone turned. He looked up from his phone, eyes wide. Like that he was FBI and nobody knew. He looked like a regular dude. The girl squinted at him. "That is a regular dude." He flinched. Yeah. I just mean like. He wasn't acting like a cop or anything." "Maybe," the mom said gently, "because he wasn't trying to." The silence that followed that wasn't hostile, it was reflective. Something unspoken shifted again, but softer this time. Like people were learning to sit in the discomfort instead of flee it. The barista wiped the counter again. "I hope he's okay." The girl tilted her phone, scrolling. "They're tagging the bureau already. People are demanding she be arrested." "She won't be," her mom said. "But this is its own kind of justice." Just then, the door swung back open. Elijah walked in. Same posture, same calm. But this time, he wasn't alone. Two plainclothes agents flanked him, quiet and focused. The cafe stilled again, but this time, it was a different stillness. Not fear, not shame, just tension. The manager paled. Elijah looked around the cafe like it was a crime scene, and in a way, it had been. "Don't worry," he said finally, scanning the room. "We're not here for her." He turned to the barista. "Can I get a list of names?" Everyone who spoke up. Her eyes widened. "For what?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "Commendation." And then, just for a second, his gaze locked with the girl holding the phone. He nodded once. Respect. Recognition. A passing of the torch. Then one of the agents leaned in. "Ready when you are, sir." Elijah took one last look around. And then he walked out again. But this time, everyone stood a little taller after he left. The bell over the cafe door jingled again, but this time it wasn't Elijah or the FBI. It was someone else. She walked in slow, older, black, cane in hand, floral scarf around her neck, and eyes sharp like polished glass. The kind of woman you don't speak over. The kind of woman who raised children with steel and sweetness in equal measure. She stood just inside the threshold, letting the door close behind her. The girl and her mom exchanged glances. Something about the woman's presence quieted even the phones. It was like the cafe felt smaller, more sacred. The old woman looked around, then pointed to the girl. You the one that posted it? The girl swallowed, suddenly unsure. Yes, ma'am. The old woman nodded once and walked forward, slow but steady, her shoes tapping soft on the tile. She sat down without asking. Then she pulled a folded piece of paper from her coat pocket and placed it on the table. The mom reached for it slowly, unfolded it. It was a printout, a photo, a still frame from the video, Elijah mid-turn, coffee dripping, eyes lit with that calm fury. The image was already iconic. But under it, someone had printed in bold, "Dignity looks like this." The girl blinked. Where did you get this? The old woman didn't answer immediately. She pulled a small envelope from her bag and placed it beside the printout. That man, she said slowly, was my son. Silence fell like snowfall. Soft, but heavy. I haven't seen him in years, she said. Not since he chose this path. Said he had to serve from the inside. I didn't agree, but I respected him. Her hands trembled slightly as she poured herself a glass of water from the carafe on the table. I never thought I'd see him like that. Not on the internet. Not soaked in coffee and grace. The girl lowered her head. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. No, the old woman interrupted. Don't you dare apologize. You let the world see what we see every day and they pretend not to. You didn't humiliate him. You revealed them. The mom touched the woman's hand. Is he all right? The woman smiled sadly. He always is. That's what scares me. Someone behind the counter sniffled. The boy in the vest had tears in his eyes. And that's when the door opened again. This time, the white woman returned. She looked different. Her jacket was gone. Her makeup had smudged. Her face was raw, open, broken in a way that felt new. No one moved. She stepped inside, slowly, eyes scanning until they landed on the old woman. I didn't know, she said, barely above a whisper. I didn't know who he was. The old woman raised her eyes. You still don't. The woman flinched. I'm sorry. No, the old woman said, her voice low but razor sharp. You're embarrassed. The white woman's lip trembled. I came back to. You came back because you didn't like what the mirror showed you, the old woman said. And now you want us to clean it for you. No one dared breathe. I just want to make it right. The old woman leaned forward. Then start by leaving people like my son the hell alone when they're standing in line for coffee. The white woman froze. There was nothing to say, no ground to stand on. She backed toward the door, and this time, she didn't look for anyone to follow her out. When the bell above the door chimed again, it was almost merciful. But the old woman didn't relax. She looked down at the envelope on the table, then pushed it toward the girl. He wouldn't tell me where he was stationed. Never did. But this morning, he sent this. The girl opened it slowly. Inside was a simple note. If I ever show up in the news, don't come looking for me. Just tell them I'm not surprised. The mom swallowed hard. Did he know this would happen? The old woman smiled faintly. He didn't have to know. He just lived like it always could. Outside, rain began to fall. Soft at first, then heavier. No one moved to leave. The cafe had become more than coffee. It had become witness. And just as the thunder rolled in from far away, the girl stood up and walked to the glass window. She looked out at the street. Then she raised her phone and hit post. A new caption. Sometimes the strongest men never raise their voice, but they make the whole room listen. The rain outside was a curtain now, washing the streets, softening the neon glow into watercolors. The cafe was nearly silent. Just the occasional hiss from the espresso machine and the muted rustle of someone shifting in their seat. But in that hush, something sacred settled. The girl scrolled through her phone. Notifications popped in like fireworks. Shares, comments, DMs, and then one message that stopped her cold. It was from Elijah. Just 3 words. I saw it. She didn't know how he got her number. She didn't care. She read it again. Then again. The old woman noticed. Her eyes met the girl's. She didn't speak. Just nodded. The mom finally rose and walked to the counter. She ordered another cup of coffee. The barista raised an eyebrow. After all that, the mom gave a sad little smile. This time it's for her. She pointed toward the old woman. And when the coffee was done, she brought it over, set it down gently. But she didn't leave. She stood there. Then slowly, she reached into her own purse and pulled something out. It was a crumpled receipt. On the back, In shaky handwriting, she'd written something. She slid it to the old woman. "I've made a lot of excuses in my life," she said, "but none worth keeping more than the truth." The old woman took the receipt, read it, then folded it and placed it in her bag. "What was it?" the girl whispered later. The mom just shook her head. "Something only mothers understand." Outside, the clouds began to thin. Light pushed through in streaks, like forgiveness trying to make its way back in. And then, another chime. Not the door this time. A phone on the counter. The barista picked it up, frowned, looked around, then tapped the screen and held it to his ear. He froze, eyes widening, then slowly looked over at the girl. "It's him," he mouthed. The girl's breath caught. The barista handed her the phone. Hands trembling, she pressed it to her ear. "Elijah," she whispered. His voice was low, steady, strong. "Don't change for them," he said. "Make them change because of you." Her throat tightened. "Where are you?" "I'm where I've always been. Just not invisible anymore." And the line went dead. She didn't cry. She just looked at the phone for a long time, then handed it back. A tear finally slid down the mom's cheek. Not from sadness, but release. The old woman stood, gathered her scarf, looked at the room one last time. "You've all seen something today," she said. "Now the question is, what are you going to do with it?" And just like that, she turned, walked to the door. Rain had stopped. She stepped out into the street without an umbrella, head held high. Inside, the cafe stayed quiet. And then, as if on cue, the girl whispered, "Play it again." The video. The first clip. Coffee midair. Elijah not flinching. But this time, people didn't look at the coffee. They looked at the stillness and saw strength. Sometimes justice doesn't wear a badge. Sometimes it walks in quietly, holds the door open, and waits for the rest of the world to catch up. If this story moved you, if it made you feel seen, or opened your eyes to what too many go through every day, then don't just scroll. Leave a comment. Let your voice echo. Share this story with someone who needs to see it. Like it so the algorithm doesn't bury it. And hit subscribe to stand with stories that speak truth quietly, but powerfully. Because here on Justice Throne, silence is never the end of the story. It's just the pause before change.